They say revenge is a dish best served cold, but sometimes the universe serves it up piping hot with a side of poetic justice. I'm Sarah Mitchell, and this is the story of how my supervisor's moment of cruelty became the catalyst for everything I'd ever wanted. When I joined Meridian Solutions as a client relationship coordinator, the company was hemorrhaging clients faster than a sinking ship takes on water. The retention numbers were dismal, morale was low, and management was scrambling for solutions. Most of my colleagues treated client interactions like assembly line work. Get in, process the request, get out. Efficiency metrics ruled everything. But I saw something different in those client files. Behind every account number was a human being with real concerns, real frustrations, and real needs that went beyond the transactional. While my colleagues were focused on keeping call times under 5 minutes, I was taking 15, 20, sometimes 30 minutes to truly understand what our clients were experiencing. I started keeping detailed notes about each client's personal situation. When Mrs. Rodriguez mentioned her daughter's wedding, I followed up weeks later to ask how the ceremony went. When Michael Stone shared his concerns about his expanding business, I made sure to check in about his new location opening. These weren't just pleasantries, they were investments in human connection. The results spoke for themselves. My client retention rate jumped 37% in just 6 months. The revenue from my accounts increased by over $200,000. Clients specifically requested to work with me, and several mentioned in feedback surveys that they felt truly heard and valued for the first time in years. But my supervisor, Victoria Blackwood, saw things differently. She was old school corporate. Everything had to fit into neat spreadsheets and efficiency models. To her, my longer call times represented waste, not value. My personalized follow-ups were unprofessional boundary violations, not relationship building. "Sarah, we need to talk," she said one morning, her voice carrying that familiar tone of disapproval. "Your metrics are concerning. 20-minute average call times? That's completely unacceptable." I pulled up my retention numbers, my revenue figures, the glowing client feedback. "But look at the results, Victoria. My clients are staying. They're expanding their contracts. They're referring new business." She waved her hand dismissively. "Those are coincidences. What matters is efficiency. Process more calls, generate more touchpoints, stick to the script." For months, I documented everything meticulously. Every successful client interaction, every renewed contract, every piece of positive feedback went into a comprehensive audit file. I tracked how my relationship building approach translated directly into revenue. I showed patterns of client loyalty that correlated with personalized attention. I built an irrefutable case that treating clients as human beings, not transaction numbers, was not just morally right, it was profitable. The audit represented a year of my professional life. Hundreds of hours of relationship building, documentation, and proof that there was a better way to do business. I organized it all into a detailed presentation, complete with charts, testimonials, and financial projections. This wasn't just data. It was validation of everything I believed about the power of authentic human connection in business. The day I planned to present my findings to upper management, Victoria called an all-hands department meeting. I thought this might be my moment to share the success story to show how my approach could be scaled across the entire client relations team. Instead, Victoria stood at the front of the conference room, her laptop connected to the main screen, my audit file open for everyone to see. "I want to address something that's been bothering me," she began, her voice carrying an edge I'd never heard before. "Some people think they can reinvent how we do business here. They think their personal approach is more important than proven efficiency methods." My stomach dropped as I realized what was happening. This wasn't a presentation, it was a public execution. "Sarah has spent an entire year creating this personal project," she continued, gesturing toward the screen. "Instead of focusing on core metrics, she's been playing therapist with our clients, wasting time on irrelevant personal details." I watched, frozen, as she highlighted sections of my carefully documented work. Every client story, every successful intervention, every piece of evidence that proved my approach worked. She was turning it all into evidence of my supposed unprofessionalism. This kind of boundary-crossing behavior is exactly what we need to eliminate, she said, her finger hovering over the delete key. We're not social workers. We're client relationship coordinators. We process requests efficiently and professionally. The room was silent. 23 colleagues watching. A year of my professional life on the screen. And then she did it. She pressed delete. The screen went blank for a moment, then showed the empty folder. A year's worth of documentation, proof, validation, gone. The silence in the room was deafening. Now, Victoria said, closing the laptop with a sharp click. I expect everyone to focus on what actually matters. Efficiency, metrics, results that we can quantify. She looked directly at me. Sarah, I expect you to start fresh. No more of this personal approach nonsense. Follow the established protocols or find somewhere else to work. I sat there, staring at the closed laptop, feeling like I'd just watched someone burn down a house I'd spent a year building. The humiliation was crushing, but underneath it was something else. A cold, clear understanding that this wasn't just about different management philosophies. This was about fundamental values, about what kind of professional I wanted to be. The meeting ended with awkward shuffling and averted eyes. My colleagues filed out quietly, a few offering sympathetic glances, but no one said anything. I sat alone in the conference room for several minutes, processing what had just happened. A year of work, deleted in front of everyone I worked with daily. But here's the thing about building genuine relationships. They don't disappear when you delete a file. Those connections, those conversations, those moments of authentic human interaction, they existed in the memories and hearts of the people I'd helped. Victoria could delete my documentation, but she couldn't delete the trust I'd built. I walked back to my desk in a daze, trying to figure out what came next. The phone rang before I could even sit down. Sarah Mitchell? This is James Rodriguez from Apex Consulting. I got your name from Michael Stone. I believe you've been working with him on his account at Meridian Solutions. I recognized the name immediately. Michael had mentioned his business partner several times during our conversations. Yes, I know Michael well. How can I help you? Actually, I'm calling to see if you'd be interested in helping us. We're a consulting startup focused on relationship-driven business growth. Michael couldn't stop talking about how you've transformed his experience with client relations. We're looking for someone who understands that business is fundamentally about human connection. The irony wasn't lost on me. On the same day, my supervisor had publicly humiliated me for my relationship-building approach. Someone was calling to offer me a job specifically because of that approach. The conversation lasted 45 minutes. James outlined a vision that aligned perfectly with everything I believed about client relations. They offered me a senior position with equity, a 50% salary increase, and complete autonomy to build their client relations department from the ground up. We're prepared to offer you a starting package of $500,000, James said. But more importantly, we want to give you the freedom to prove that treating clients as human beings isn't just the right thing to do. It's the smart thing to do. I accepted on the spot. Within 2 weeks of starting at Apex Consulting, something interesting began happening. My former clients at Meridian Solutions started calling me. First it was Mrs. Rodriguez, asking if I could help her with a new project. Then Michael Stone, wanting to transfer his growing business to wherever I was working. Then 3 more clients, all in the same week. I tried working with your replacement, Mrs. Rodriguez explained during our first meeting at Apex Consulting. She was very efficient. But she didn't remember that my daughter got married, didn't ask about the business expansion we discussed, didn't seem to care about anything except processing my request as quickly as possible. I realized I wasn't just paying for a service, I was paying for a relationship. The exodus continued. Over the following months, nearly 60% of my former client base migrated to Apex Consulting. They weren't just following me, they were voting with their wallets for the kind of business relationship they valued. Meanwhile, Meridian Solutions was facing its worst client retention crisis in company history. The clients who remained were increasingly dissatisfied with the impersonal, metric-driven approach. Complaints poured in about feeling rushed, unheard, and treated like transaction numbers rather than valued partners. I heard through industry contacts that Victoria was scrambling to understand what had gone wrong. She implemented new efficiency protocols, shortened call times even further, and doubled down on her transactional approach. The hemorrhaging accelerated. 6 months after deleting my audit, Meridian Solutions announced layoffs. The client relations department was cut by 40%. The company moved to a smaller office space. Within a year, they were acquired by a competitor in what industry analysts called a rescue merger. Victoria's career never recovered. Her rigid adherence to outdated management principles, combined with her inability to adapt to changing client expectations, made her unemployable in a market that increasingly valued relationship-driven approaches. Meanwhile, thrived at Apex Consulting. The client base I brought over became the foundation for explosive growth. Within 18 months, I was promoted to senior partner. The relationship-building principles that Victoria had dismissed as unprofessional became the cornerstone of our competitive advantage. We didn't just grow, we transformed how our entire industry thought about client relations. Our approach was studied, copied, and implemented across the consulting sector. The very methods that had been publicly humiliated in that conference room became industry best practices. The most satisfying part wasn't the financial success or the professional recognition. It was the validation that came from natural consequences. I didn't need to seek revenge against Victoria. Her own actions had created the perfect storm for her professional downfall. By dismissing the value of human connection, she had severed the very relationships that kept her company viable. Sometimes the best revenge is simply letting people experience the natural results of their choices. Victoria chose efficiency over effectiveness, metrics over meaning, control over connection. The market responded accordingly. Today, when I train new client relations professionals, I tell them Sarah's story, not as a tale of workplace drama, but as a fundamental lesson about the power of authentic human connection in business. I show them that treating clients as whole human beings rather than transaction opportunities isn't just morally superior, it's strategically brilliant. The relationships we build can't be deleted, can't be downsized, can't be merged away. They exist in the trust between people, and that trust becomes the foundation for sustainable success. That's the most beautiful revenge of all, proving that kindness, empathy, and genuine human connection aren't weaknesses to be eliminated, but strengths to be cultivated. In a world obsessed with efficiency metrics, sometimes the most radical act is simply caring about people as people. The universe has a way of balancing the scales, and sometimes the best thing you can do is step back and let natural consequences work their magic.